Death is an inevitable part of life. Knowing that doesn't necessarily make it any way less scary, mainly because we don't know what happens afterwards. The Grim Reaper, basically death personified, is our human attempt to give totally random, unpredictable, yet inescapable death a face, a context, to make it just a little bit less random. While Grim Reaper of the Western world is taken straight from the Four Horsemen from the Book of Revelation, and probably for that reason plain ruthless, inhumane, disconnected, and almost demonic, Grim Reapers in Korea are, well, basically low-ranking officer that works for the underworld, where the head is the Jade King. They have the duty to come to the world in person, pick the souls of the dead, and guide them to the gate of the underworld. Don't get me wrong, they are still featured scary, sly, and powerful, otherwise no one would willingly follow them. Indeed, there's no story in which a human managed to beat the Grim Reaper by force. But Korean Reapers are comparatively more humane and interactive, so much so they do sometimes make mistakes too. And a smart human with some luck sometimes manage to fool Reapers and escape the doom. This particular character of Korean Reapers is probably because the last dynasty, Joseon, was a highly bureaucratic society as opposed to aristocratic. It was a kingdom and there was a class system, but even for highborn, the aim was to pass the government exam and climb the ladder of the government offices. Failing that, even a rich and prominent name would gradually lose its influence and reputation. The image of the underworld reflected the real world, and its structure was just as bureaucratic, putting poor Korean Reapers in the position of officers on the groundwork duty. The classic image of a Korean Reaper is in gentleman's attire from Joseon dynasty, all in black of course, with extremely pale complexion, thin black-lipped, and either black-eyed or with a tiny pinpoint of pupils. This image is actually not very old, mainly sculpted by the television costume dramas from the 80s on, but it got totally stuck in most people's mind today. Some modern pop cultures do modernize their image and put them in more sleeker, modern attire, but that doesn't really change their position as the officers serving the underworld. But just as everybody's life is different, so is death. And as you will see from today's stories, Reapers in real life seems to come in all sorts of different shapes. So here are 6 allegedly true stories about Korean Reapers. As always, handpicked, translated, and narrated by your host, Anthony. It's more than 10 years ago when I was a high school student. I was alone in my room, sleeping. In the dream, I was waiting for a friend, sitting on the staircase of some commercial building, and already a bit upset about a friend running late. Then beyond the dream, a low male voice called out my name.
Kim Min-jong.
I looked around and found no one. The same voice called me once again.
Kim Min-jong.
I thought, who the heck is calling my name? Annoying. And with that, I woke from the dream, and I saw the dark silhouette of a man sitting cross-legged on my left. I wasn't paralyzed as with typical sleep paralysis, yet couldn't move, completely overwhelmed by the sheer charismatic presence of the man. He then, still sitting down, looked down on me and called out my name again.
Kim Min-jong.
I was so frozen that I could not utter any sound. All I could do was to shut my eyes hard and then open again, to find the man had vanished. Following day, I casually told my experience with relish to my friends. One of them then told me that the Grim Reaper calls out a person's name 3 times, and if the person replies, the Ripper would take the person with him, and that I had narrowly escaped that. I don't know if her claim is true or not, but I can still vividly remember the man's overwhelming aura and his voice calling up my name from somewhere between the dream and reality. When I was little, my mom got very ill and was bedridden. But just after a few days, she recovered completely, as if nothing had happened. I just thought it a relief, but later, Grandma told me there was more to that. Grandma was caring for ill Mom at the time. One day she dozed off next to Mom and had a dream. In the dream, she sensed somebody was trying to break into the room. Grandma blocked the rattling door with her body. After some time, it got quiet, and she could feel there was nobody on the opposite side of the door anymore. She sighed of relief, came back to check on my mom again, when a pebble flew in from the window. Somebody was throwing pebbles. Grandma got angry and looked out of the window, ready to shower swears. But the next moment she dropped on the floor. Outside were 2 Grim Reapers throwing pebbles. She realized that they were luring her off from guarding the door and turned around to Mom in bed. Alas, another Ripper was already there, looking down on Mom. Grandma was too overwhelmed to do anything. Then the Ripper said, "Oh dear, it's the wrong person," and turned around and went away. And after that dream, Mom recovered in no time. Could that be really because the Ripper didn't take her away? A story from when I was 9. Us family of 4 lived in a small house with 2 rooms, one for my parents and the other for me and my older brother. That spring, my grandma came to live with us. Her worsening Alzheimer's was taking a toll, and she needed somebody to tend her day to day. Now, my brother had to live with my parents, and I with grandma. I was still young and was fond of my grandma, and I didn't find the arrangement a nuisance. It was just sad to see grandma struggling with her fading memory and getting hard to move by herself. Not long after, yet another bad news. She was diagnosed with lung cancer on top of her Alzheimer's. It wasn't too big a surprise considering she'd been a lifelong smoker. It was already too advanced, and her condition worsened quickly. It was one rainy summer night. As usual, I went to bed with grandma about at 10. I was woken up by my grandma. "Get up, child, get up." "What's up, grandma?" I thought she got up for a glass of water or something. "Friends of your dad's are visiting. Open the door for them, quickly," she said. My eyes followed where her finger was pointing. The window. Our flat was on the 2nd floor, and all I could see was the crown of trees shaking violently in the rainy storm. "Grandma, that's just the window." I thought she should be hallucinating. Grandma lied back in silence and seemed falling asleep again. But she shook me up again not long after. "Get up, child. Open the door to your dad's friends." "Grandma, that's just window." This repeated 3-4 times. And then, "Friends of Dad's are here. Open the door," she said again, but this time she tried to get up herself. "Grandma, I told you it's just window." "No, they're at the door. Help me out of bed." I tried to persuade not to, but she insisted. So I supported her to the front door. I put a light on the hallway, but naturally I could not see any sign of a person through the glass pane of the door. "Grandma, there's nobody." Grandma looked at me as if I was mad and shouted to stop my nonsense and hurry open the door. I gave up and decided just play along. I cautiously opened the door and called out, "Anybody?" just in case. Just raindrops flying in the wind over the dark sky. I came back in and locked the door. "Nobody's there, Grandma," I said. This time, she seemed calm and just told me to come back to bed. I supported her back to bed, hoping this was the end of this drama. That night, Grandma passed away in her sleep. Occasionally it has happened that in my dream a guy all in black appears. When he does, the entire space around him also turns black. Then he'll tell me, "That's it for now. Get up and answer your phone." And indeed, I'd wake up to a phone call. It has happened 3 times so far. The first time it happened, I got a call informing me that my grandmother passed away. The second time, it was my grandfather who passed. The third time, it was the sister of my grandmother. I'm a bit scared. When would be the next time I would have to see the man in black again? It happened about 5 years ago, while my mother was away for about a month due to a family business. Our next-door neighbor were 2 old ladies living together. One day I noticed the snack package the government care worker brought to the old ladies was left in front of their door. That reminded me that I actually hadn't seen them those few days. Not that I would get to see them every day, but still would usually run into them on and off. But I just assumed that the ladies were off somewhere. A few more days passed, and I noticed again that the snack package was left outside. Suddenly I remembered what my mother told me shortly before she went away to attend to family business. My family and the old ladies were not particularly close neighbors, beyond the usual exchanging hellos passing by. But one day, the neighbor rang our door and earnestly asked Mom if she could come over to their place. Mom was a bit alarmed with the unusual request, so agreed to come around. Then the old lady pointed at their balcony and the front door and asked if she could do something to get rid of those black things. These black things would keep standing at the door and more black things creeping up through the balcony. Mom was naturally confused and asked what they meant, but they failed to describe what they were exactly beyond just black things. What was obvious was that they were very much frightened. Of course, my mother couldn't see anything. She's not very spiritual and has been never associated with any religions either, and just assumed the ladies were losing their mental capacity with their advanced age. So she just tried to calm them down with some kind words and help them tidying up and preparing meals. And now, looking at the snack package untouched for days, the story of black things felt suddenly ominous. I asked the concierge of the block if he could check on the ladies. On my way back from work that evening, the concierge stopped me to inform that the two ladies were found dead. One seemed to pass with a natural cause, and a companion who was severely autistic was starved to death after her carer died. It was a great shock to me. While I was watching TV, have my meals, and chat on the phone, just on the other side of the wall was the poor old lady slowly flickering out. I regret that I didn't alert the concierge as soon as I noticed something was amiss. But then, what were those black things the ladies saw and were terrified of? Was that really the illusion created by their imagination in their isolated life? Or could that have been the death foreshadowing their imminent visit to them? My mother's great-grandmother was a professional shaman, but the spirit she served was not particularly a strong one, and it didn't claim down the generations. Even so, her family shared certain spiritual sensitivity, and my mother happened to be the one with the strongest trait. It's not that she sees ghosts all the time, but shall I say she can smell death? The first instant in her life was, she told me, when her grandmother passed away. Her grandma, who'd been stern and cold all her life, had been bedridden for a long time. One day, mother was bringing in a bowl of warm water to towel wash her grandma, and saw this strange creature in front of the door. Completely hairless and bony, its body was all in dark grey. His naked figure swayed a bit, then made a full bow towards the room. Mother is not sure if the noise of her dropping the bowl or the cry of mourning from people inside the room rang out first. Grandmother passed the moment that thing bowed to her. It wasn't too long after that my mother encountered with it again. Her father, my grandpa, took his character after his mother and was well known for his quirkiness. He too suffered a long period of illness. Despite of his strange character, his love for his favorite daughter, my mother, was particular, and she was sort of bound to take care of him beside his sick bed, though she herself hadn't yet fully recovered from giving birth to me. That fateful day, she was bringing in a bowl of rice porridge for her dad, and saw that thing again. At the noise of her dropping the bowl, it turned to look at my mom. Unproportionately large head with full black eyes. It didn't stir despite of mother, and slowly started to make a full bow. Her mind was telling her that she should stop it, but she could not move a step nor utter a word. And the moment it finished bowing in the direction of her father, her brother started wailing inside the room. To this day, she's not sure if that thing was the Reaper or a ghost created by the collective unconsciousness of family members who got tired of caring for the sick for the extended period. That was the last time she saw it, and she hasn't quite shaken off the sense of guilt about her father's passing. Hi, this is Anthony, and thank you very much for your listening. Today's episode is the first of the Death Trilogy, to put it grandly. So we took a look at Grim Reaper, basically death itself. Next episode we'll take a look at the journey down to the underworld. And for the last, we will look at how the dead are remembered and served in the Korean culture. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed my work, please like, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell icon to help my new channel grow. Until the next, stay safe and take care.